So, in the latest of our Continental European Speedway group little interviews, it gives me great pleasure today to welcome US star Luke Becker along to answer some questions for us. First of all, Luke, I'd like to thank you so much for agreeing to come along today and welcome. And I'm going to start off just by asking how you're doing.
How's it going, Michael? Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to be on. I haven't got to watch too many of the other interviews that you've done so far, but I've spoke to some different people, and they said they've been so far so good. So yeah, thanks for having me on, and yeah, everything's going good. I just had a meeting last night in Poland, which unfortunately we ended up losing in the end. So now we're knocked out of playoffs, and that's the season done in Poland. But we still got other leagues as England, Denmark, and Sweden to look forward to. So yeah, everything's going good, and just hoping to finish off the season on a high.
Yeah, good. I was watching that meeting yesterday, and I saw how it went. And bad luck to which, but as you say, you've got other teams to look forward to with the playoffs and stuff. So I'd like to start by thinking about. There's probably a lot of people in the Continental group who have watched you racing in the UK, Sweden, Denmark, Poland, but they may be not really very sort of sure about the situation in America. So the first sort of question is just to ask you how old you were when you first started racing, where these initial rides took place, and who or what actually got you into the sport.
Yeah, so it all began, I believe I was 11 years old. Yeah, it should have been 11 because I had 1 year on the 150s, we call it, before you're able to bump up to the 250s once you turn 12. So yeah, I started when I was 11. My father grew up racing all of his younger days and all through the junior career and up into the 500s and like the pro class before I was born. And then once I came along, he kind of backed away from the whole speedway side of things and focused on everyday life and all that sort. But yeah, my dad got me involved. I grew up. I've always been on bikes, riding motocross and all other sorts. So I've always kind of been on two wheels. And my dad was actually so like I said, when I was born, he ended up stopping racing Speedway and ended up having a full break away from the sport for about, I think it would have been 9 years or so, and then he came back racing again. That's when I got like more involved with Speedway, going to all the races with him. And he did about, I think it was a year and a half racing again with me, not riding, just there as a spectator. And of course I wanted to like get involved, but the opportunity didn't come up yet. We didn't have a bike lined up for me and all of that. But we had a good friend of my dad's, Bob Hicks. He was another American Speedway rider, and his son Colton was racing at the time. And they had not only he's a main sponsor back home in Northern California, but all around good guy. His name's Bill Warnock. He supplied bikes for Bob and Bob's son Colton, and we went to a practice session up in Auburn. That's like my closest track to me is Auburn. That's just under 2 hours from where I live and grew up. Okay. And go to this practice day, and I wasn't meant to be riding or anything of that sort yet. And he ended up offering, they had two bikes for his son, so they offered me one of these 150s to try out, and instantly, fell in love with it. It was from the first couple laps. I knew I wanted to race before that, but once I got that day over with, I was for sure hooked, and ended up luckily getting offered that bike to ride for the rest of the season from the sponsor Bill Warnock, and Bob was okay with it and looked after it and all that sort. So that's how it took off. My dad got me involved. Bill Warnock and Bob Hicks kind of the ones that got me, kicked off in the beginning, and then it all took off from there.
And I mean, how many active tracks are there in California, and are they fairly close to each other? And I mean, obviously there's not league racing there, but I mean, how often are there meetings across there?
I mean, as of right now, recently there's really only three tracks that run during the season, which is Auburn, Costa Mesa, and Industry. That's like the European season, same time as I'm racing over here, so I don't get to ride those tracks more or less when I'm back home. And then there's another track, Bakersfield, that's been that runs some meetings during the normal season, and then a lot more in the winter. Okay. That's where I ride most. But yeah, it's those four tracks. like during the season, they don't normally always race every single week. It's kind of like they split up, but some of them do, like sometimes some weeks there are, so you can be doing 3 meetings a week. But like as you said, it's a whole different sport, really. Not only are like the sport's really small back home, but our tracks are really small
Even
as well, as
smaller.
most
Yeah.
people have seen. So it's yeah, like I said, a whole different sport and whole different ball game. Really, it's you get over here and it's just the level of professionalism and how you can actually make a living off riding your bike is
Absolutely.
pretty crazy
Absolutely.
to say the least. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely a step up.
And when you were so in these early years when you were doing the 150s or just kind of kind of growing up around the bikes, who were your real heroes when you were at that sort of stage?
I'd say for sure Billy Gennaro. He's somebody, I mean, absolute animal on
Yeah.
the bike. That's somebody that raced at like my home track weekly. So that was somebody I definitely looked up to. And even Billy Hamill. Billy Hamill
Yeah.
was also he was at that time he was more riding more in Southern California, but he was also somebody I was really inspired to be. And then of course Greg Hancock, but that was more just I didn't get to see him ride too much back home. That was more just seeing all the Grand Prix and stuff like that over here in Europe. So yeah, those are definitely the three top guys, and that who I strive to be when I was younger.
Yeah. And so then sort of moving forward a little bit, I was looking through your history and you became American under 21 champion in 2016. And I presume by that sort of stage you were kind of looking forward to maybe coming to Europe by progressing your career a bit. And myself, I've been an Edinburgh fan for not far off 50 years now. So I kind of remember being really excited by the news during the kind of end of 2017 that you were hopefully going to join Edinburgh for the 2018 season. But of course, that didn't actually come off due to an injury that you had competing in the American Championship, I think in 2017. And then there was some sort of subsequent visa issues. Can you explain the background to that?
Yeah, I mean it's a bit crazy how all that played out, really. Yeah, like you said, I was that year, end of 2017 is when I got a phone call from Edinburgh, and they expressed their interest in having me for the following year. And I was, of course, over the moon, stoked. That was my dream, was
Yeah.
to make it over to Europe and that next season. And all I needed to do was place top 4 in the American Championship. That's how you're able to qualify for a work visa in the UK, at least. And all that was, I think that year we had 5 rounds, if I believe correctly,
Mhm.
5 or 4. But anyways, after the first 3 or 4 of them, I was sitting second in the championship, not far off from the top, and I had an injury where I broke my ankle, so I wasn't able to do the last round, which was 2 weeks later. So I missed out, and I went all the way from second place down to 5th place, and I missed, I think, by a point or a point or two. So it was pretty close, and that of course made some problems when it came to applying for the work visa and getting everything of that sort situated. So it was absolutely devastating. And we're trying to do other things like appeal to
I
hopefully try and
remember.
get some kind
Yeah, I
of
remember.
leeway
I mean,
against it.
I mean,
But
it was in the press here for weeks, and we were following it as well. And it was pretty disappointing for us as well. But I mean, obviously, you said you were devastated. But I mean, in 2018, you did actually manage to get across to Poland, I think, to race for Rzeszów. Was that right?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's funny how it all played out because, like I said, I was devastated. I wasn't able to go to Edinburgh, and then I think it would have been just a few weeks later. I got a phone call from Greg Hancock.
Mhm.
I've met him before. I've had a conversation with him, but I didn't really know him too well before that time. And of course, he heard about the whole situation with Edinburgh and the bad news, and he was like, "Look, man, I know you're probably a bit beaten up by the whole situation, but next year if you're up for it." He's like, "I don't know what your plans are, but if you want to come over to Sweden with me for say 2 to 3 weeks just to get some practice in, just get the experience. We can go to
Mhm.
Poland, see some things over there, and just come check it out for 2 weeks if you want to come along." And I was like, of course, that was a
Yeah,
no-brainer. I wanted to go for that. And
absolutely.
yeah, funny enough, I was supposed to only be going for I think 2 to 3 weeks, and I ended up staying for the whole season. They ended up getting me signed up and introduced me to some really great people here in Poland with Rafał High and Magic Janowski, and kind of showed me the ropes and got me some contracts, some league racing I was able to do after the first month or two. I was able to do that, so
So, and then
all ends up
looking,
working out for a reason, realistically.
yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, it's sort of every cloud has a silver lining sort of thing, I suppose, in the end. And then looking, first of all, at the clubs that you've raced for in Poland, so Rzeszów, Rawicz, Łódź, and Zielona Góra as well. Can you tell me which of these tracks that you've maybe enjoyed racing at most?
As far as tracks, I mean, Łódź is by far, I can say, one of my favorite tracks. I've done 3 seasons now after this year, and it's always a place I, enjoyed going to, and a track I really liked in Poland. But even being a part of Zielona Góra last year, that was the whole atmosphere, the club, the professionalism, everything about it. And I know we went undefeated and won the league, so of course it was everything was happy. But that set the bar really, really high, being involved in that team. And they were a previous extra league team, so of course they're going to be professional and one of the top. But as far as tracks, Łódź, and then clubs, Zielona Góra.
And this is a question that I'm always keen to ask riders, is for those, because there's a lot of Continental European Speedway group members maybe that haven't been to Poland and don't really appreciate the atmosphere and maybe the difference of atmosphere compared to maybe the UK or Sweden or wherever. But, can you kind of explain what the crowds are like in Poland compared to these other places?
Yeah, I mean, like I said even earlier,
Especially in Zielona Góra.
It's a whole different sport. Yeah, Zielona Góra, that, like I said, really set the bar high. The fans were unreal, and they have plenty of pride with their teams, and like all the clubs, all of them have diehard fans, and of course, maybe a better atmosphere, it being a lot more people at the stadium as compared to the UK, but the whole the pressure, everything about it, it's a whole different level, and it's hard to explain until you actually experience it firsthand.
Yeah, and then coming back to the UK, so here in the UK, you raced for Wolverhampton between 2019 and 2023, and this year Leicester. So tracks in Britain are often described as being a bit more technical, and therefore giving riders a chance to develop their skills a wee bit more than maybe some of the faster European tracks. Is there a track in the UK that you really particularly like racing at? And equally so, is there a track or tracks that maybe that you're not so keen on?
As everybody probably has the same answer, Bellevue's a great place, puts on good racing, everything about it. That's definitely one of the top tracks in England, but I'd say probably my favorite would have been Peterborough. Peterborough is a place I really enjoyed, and it was a fun, fast, also put on good racing. So I like there. Wolverhampton was something I, cared for too. Once you get dialed in at that place, it's a good home track. But of course, tracks I don't like, I've had places like Ipswich and Kings Lynn, and places starting off I didn't really care for, and sometimes have some mixed results there. But then I've also had good results there too. So it's not really any particular that I absolutely hate going to, but it's kind of hard to say really.
Okay, and then you've also been a regular racer in both Sweden and Denmark since you first came over to Europe. I mean, how difficult is it to keep yourself organised throughout the season? I mean, I kind of followed your path over the last couple of weeks where you're racing, and obviously you're flying in and out of different countries. I mean, is it quite difficult to stay organised throughout the 6 months? And where do you base yourself when you're in Europe?
Yeah, there's a lot, there's a lot that goes into it behind the scenes that probably everybody doesn't exactly see, but, flights, you got ferries, you got your hotels, you got how you're going to get from this place to that place, how your mechanics are getting from there to that, from point A to point B, and, everything about it, planning engine services, everything bike related. And, there's a lot of planning goes into it, and I actually do everything on my own, and, I don't mind doing it. I'm kind of as some people say, I'm kind of a bit of a control freak, so I haven't passed that off to anybody yet, but I don't mind doing it. And it's a lot. I'm based here in Poland, in Wrocław, Poland, while I'm in Europe. During the season, I don't really spend too much time at home because, like you said, we're always on the go and racing. But I mean, like you said, there's a lot that goes into it, but at the same time, it all pays off, and it's
And you
my
couldn't
job.
really pick a better place or a more beautiful place in Poland to kind of base yourself. I mean, Wrocław, just a tremendous city, vibrant and a lot of people there, and just but a really relaxed atmosphere as well. It's one of my favourite cities in Poland, I have to say. I mean, throughout your career, also you've had one or two injuries, like lots of riders. It's a hazard of the sport. I remember watching the meeting from Zarnovic in Slovakia in 2023, where you broke your leg. I mean, that must have been really frustrating, like any injury. But I mean, how frustrating is it to be sat on the sidelines, if you're injured and kind of waiting to get back to full fitness again?
Yeah, I'd say I was definitely pretty fortunate. Throughout all the years, I didn't really have any crazy big injuries, knock on wood. But yeah, last year was I got hit hard with it. That was my first year, as far as coming to being in Europe. Sitting out and missing all the racing. But it was all, like you said, it's all part of racing, and definitely was. It went by slow, to say the least. I was out for I think 2 months, a little over 2 months with my leg, and then I came back racing for about 3 weeks, and then I broke my hand, so I was out for another 3 weeks after that. So it was nearly 3 months out of the season, which was a lot of racing to be missing. And I stayed over here while I was injured and doing my physical therapy and all of that. But yeah, I mean, it's all part of it, but it definitely made me appreciate what I do a lot more, and was a lot more hungry after it too. So everything happens for a reason, and yeah, that's all part of the name of the game.
Absolutely. And then I've asked one or two other riders this as well, about sponsorship. And obviously sponsorship is a big part of Speedway. And you're one of quite a large number of riders supported by Paul Christensen in Denmark from 3P Logistics. So how did that sponsorship come about, and how do you feel Paul's helped you?
Paul, I met him at the end of last year. I think it was our last league match for the final in Zlina. He helps out Rasmus Jensen, who I was teammates with, and end up bumping into him up in the the VIP area afterwards, getting some food, and just got to chatting, and I could see straight away that he's pretty involved. And honestly, I've heard of him, and I didn't know too much about him. And then we set up a time to have a chat after that day, and said that he was going to help me out this season, which I'm extremely fortunate for. And I've got to know him a bit more since then, and he's not only a good guy, but it's pretty motivating too, to see what he's done with all his different companies, and yeah, just how all around of a person he is. So it's like you said, without sponsors and people behind you helping you, it's kind of hard to do it. Especially starting out, there's so many expenses that go into racing and riding your bike every other day or whatever it is, and not having good people behind you to help offset those expenses is a bit difficult. And yeah, Paul is a great person to have in my corner, and I hope that we can grow together, and hopefully you can be someone that's a longtime supporter and friend also.
Yeah, sure. And then a little question about the Continental European Speedway Group itself. I remember it was actually at the Speedway World Cup a year or so ago in Wrocław. I was kind of walking around the square and kind of bumped into you, and you kind of said, "Oh, you're the guy that helps me see a lot of Speedway." I mean, is this a group that you think that is good for the sport, and do some of your friends and family kind of watch Speedway through it as well? And how do you feel being part of that?
Yeah, 100%. I follow a lot of Speedway myself, and I'm a bit of a Speedway freak, watching every meeting that I can when I have extra time. But yeah, it's not just me. I have lots of family, friends, people back home that are able to luckily watch everything that's happening, or nearly everything that's happening through the group. So it's good. It's I see some of the comments, and kind of you see how you try to keep all the negativity away and keep positive, and everybody's a fan of the sport, and it's a good place to watch Speedway and put your thoughts in too. So yeah, everything I've seen has been awesome, and I think you're doing a really good job with everything, with it all.
Well, hopefully we'll keep that going for a long time yet. And so we're kind of approaching the final part of the 2024 season now. You mentioned, obviously, you had that meeting yesterday with Wooch. And when we get to the end of the playoffs in October, and it's perhaps time to relax a little for a while, what are your plans for the winter? And does that give you time to catch up with your family and loved ones back home, or are you still racing in the winter, or do you kind of switch off completely for a few months, or what?
I will be going back home as soon as like all the racing wraps up here. But yeah, I'd still ride. I do plenty of practicing. Not crazy amount of meetings. I think we'll probably have maybe about 4 of them in the off season if we get lucky. But I'll still be practicing, being plenty of time on the bike, which is good, and catching up with all my family, friends, everybody that I've missed for the whole racing season, and try to do some things we enjoy. Being by the beach and soaking up a little bit better of a winter as like we have in here in Europe. But yeah, it's good. I try to keep active. I ride a lot of motocross in the off season to keep in shape, and yeah, everything about it. It's good to go home, and I guess you could say switching off. At the same time, we're still working hard behind the scenes, training and everything about it, getting ready for the following season.
Yeah, and when did the preparations for the following season start? I mean, is by the time you get to the new year, are you already kind of getting all your bikes and stuff ready, and or flights, or planning your mechanics and all that kind of stuff?
I'm basically starting. As soon as we wrap up here, we not too much time off. It's more of a of course you got to get mechanics lined up, your clubs, your contracts, everything sorted. It's good to have it sorted before you go home if it's possible. Makes the being able to relax a bit more easy. But yeah, there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of preparation to go into making this all happen, and it's kind of getting going on it right when the season ends, really.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people don't really appreciate what goes on behind the scenes. So it's good to hear all that. I mean, you're involved in various playoffs still, and I think is your next meeting Wednesday this week? Is that Denmark?
Yeah, in Denmark.
But kind of ahead of all that, I'd just like to kind of thank you again for answering the questions, and wish you all the very best for the rest of 2024 season and beyond. And thank you so much again for speaking to us today. So thanks very much, Luke.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure. See you later.